Hola, bienvenido a este video. Hi, welcome to this video. My name is Nate, and today I'm going to be telling you how I learned fluent Spanish. Now, if you don't already know who I am, I'm Nate. I learned Spanish in high school 7 years ago, and now I teach you how to learn fluent Spanish. And today we're going to go through the detailed journey of exactly how I was able to achieve fluency in the Spanish language. Now, this video might be a little bit longer than my normal videos, but I want to make sure that I'm being specific and giving you guys good details on how to improve your own Spanish so that you can one day get to my more advanced level. Now, I'd also like to preface this with the fact that a lot of the times native speakers confuse me to be Mexican when I'm speaking Spanish. So I just want you to understand that becoming fluent or conversational in the Spanish language is 100% possible. All it takes is time. Okay, so let's jump right in. So I started learning Spanish in high school. I was 14 years old when I first started, and I had been told by some of my older friends who had taken Spanish a year before me that Spanish was the worst thing in the world. I was going to hate it. The homework was impossible, and it was just pretty much the worst thing in the world. So you can definitely say that going into my first Spanish class, I was thinking, man, this is going to be the worst. It's going to be my hardest class. I'm going to hate it. So after my first class with Maestra Lance, I was so confused because I said, hey, my friends told me this is the worst thing ever, the worst thing to have ever been invented by humankind. And yet, this is actually pretty intriguing. This is pretty cool. I can make all these new sounds, and now a whole new type of person can understand me and communicate with me. I found that really fascinating. I had never really considered that before. I was just a wee 14-year-old lad, right? So, really important to be aware of. I was in class 45 minutes a day, 5 days a week, okay? There's something to be said there, all right? I know that a lot of us typically will just go to something easy or very passive like Duolingo. We'll do 5 to 10 minutes, and that'll kind of be our Spanish for the day. Now, this is okay if you're willing to learn Spanish at a slower pace. You don't need to learn fluent Spanish in a month. Frankly, that's impossible, but you don't need to go 45 minutes, 5 days a week if that's too much for you. If you're too busy, you work a lot. However, there is something to be said there, okay? Now, one of the biggest reasons that my Spanish became very good very quickly was because of what I'll be calling lunchtime learning. So in high school, I had a lot of Spanish-speaking friends already. Now, when I first started taking Spanish classes, I, didn't really speak a whole lot of Spanish with them, but eventually I started constantly speaking with my Spanish-speaking friends during lunchtime. So we'd all be at school, we'd all be at lunch, and I would say, hey Luis, hey Aaron, please only speak to me in Spanish. I really want to practice. And a lot of the times they'd be kind of embarrassed, and this can sometimes happen with Spanish speakers when you're trying to speak Spanish with them. A lot of the times, what I'll do, and what I still do, is I ask Spanish speakers, hey, I'm trying to improve my Spanish. Would you mind if I practice with you? That's all you have to say to kind of break that barrier. I know a lot of us can struggle with our confidence when speaking the language, and doing this lunchtime learning is how you're going to build that confidence. What I mean by that is speaking with Spanish speakers often, right? So at first you're going to be uncomfortable, you're going to be a little unconfident, pretty nervous. Your heart might get racing a little bit, you freeze up, you don't know what to say. That's totally normal at first. It would happen to me all the time. In fact, sometimes that still happens to me, okay? So it's nothing out of the ordinary, okay? But you build up that confidence by speaking all the time. And that's what I was doing in high school. I would learn the rules and the vocabulary in the classroom setting, although sometimes it might have been a little bit boring. I was learning how the language was functioning, how it works. Then I would take it outside of the classroom into the real world with my friends and do some lunchtime learning, some speaking, okay? Now, this is hugely important. I failed every single day. I would constantly be making mistakes. Hey, Luis, buenos dias. No, it's buenos dias, Nate. Oh, right, my bad. Okay, I was always making mistakes, always asking questions. Okay, so that's so important for you. If you want to learn Spanish quickly, you need to be making mistakes. You need to put yourself out there and not be afraid to embarrass yourself in front of others. One of the biggest reasons that I'm at the level I'm at today is because I was constantly failing, right? We learn from our mistakes, okay? So I would say it took me about a year to become fluent. Now, fluency can oftentimes be a very vague term. When I say fluency here, I just mean I could pretty much have a basic conversation with anyone about anything. I may have said things totally wrong. For example, I may have used ser or estar in an incorrect way, or maybe por and para in an incorrect way. However, Spanish speakers could still understand me. My accent wasn't the best, but more or less I could communicate with anyone about anything. Okay? Now, this is a really big one. I think teaching something actually really helps us to learn things. And that's what I would do in my Spanish classes. My peers would see, hey, Nate is taking a liking to this. He understands this. He gets this. I'm going to ask him for help. So a lot of the times I was almost like a teacher's assistant. I was a tutor within my Spanish high school classes. So there's something to be said there. I was constantly helping other students, but if I didn't understand something, I asked questions. Now, this is hugely important, and it's one of the huge benefits of having in-person Spanish classes or even online classes with a tutor where you can constantly be asking questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Excuse me, I don't understand why we're using the subjunctive mood here. I don't understand why we're using the preterite or the imperfect. I'm confused. The teacher may have explained it to me. Okay, yeah. No, you know what? I still don't understand. Can you explain that again? Okay, so don't be afraid to ask questions when learning the language. Now, you may be asking your friends, a teacher. It'll just depend. But make sure that you're asking questions. You're Googling things. Hey, why is it this? Or how would I say this? Okay, that curiosity is going to bring huge dividends. Okay, so starting my junior year, this is when my Spanish accent really just took a 180. My accent became much better. How did it become much better? Because I started listening to music every day. Now, there's something to be said for listening to music, okay? So music in Spanish is one of my favorite ways to practice Spanish. I listen to music in Spanish seriously every single day. I've been doing it since my junior year, since I was 16 years old, so 5 years now of Spanish every single day. And this is going to help your accent a ton. And not only that, but your listening comprehension skills. You're going to say, hey, I heard that in that song I was listening to when you're having a conversation with someone. Okay, so listen to music. That's a huge lesson to be learned from my story and how I learned the language. I actually have a really comprehensive playlist of my favorite songs in Spanish. I'll put that link in the description of this video. Okay, so really important. Okay, next, frozen yogurt practice. So what I mean by this is my senior year of high school, I started working at a frozen yogurt store in my town. And one of the things I would do while I was working, as I was making up the yogurt, having the time of my life, a lot of customers would come in and they would speak Spanish. They would be Spanish speakers, and I would say, hey, would you mind if I practice my Spanish with you? I heard you speaking Spanish with your friend or your family member. Would you mind if I practice with you, if I try to speak with you? And this is so important. Speaking, like we've been talking about, speaking. Speaking is by far the best way to learn the Spanish language, even if you don't know what you're saying. Just trying to get it out there and communicating, interacting with Spanish speakers is going to help you a ton. Okay, so I was getting a lot of practice on my 6-hour shifts making frozen yogurt, speaking with Spanish speakers from all over, from Colombia, Mexico, El Salvador, Costa Rica, like from everywhere. Okay, so that's really important. Okay, next, I started volunteering teaching Spanish conversational classes at the local college in my town. Now, this was actually amazing because this is actually a pretty prestigious organization that I started volunteering at. And I was teaching people from ages 16 to 60. It was really awesome. And I was teaching conversational Spanish classes. Now, this was a huge help for my Spanish because I remember giving these classes, and sometimes I wouldn't know how to say words. Hey, Nate, how do you say pepper? Maybe I would say chile. Instead, I should have said pimiento or pimienta, depending on pimienta is black pepper, pimiento is like a more like a bell pepper, kind of pepper. Okay, so by doing these classes, I was learning new vocabulary, okay? Things that students want to talk about, hearing the common themes of, oh, right, that's a really important thing to know how to talk about. Okay, so that really helped me. So I was 18 when I was doing this. I was super busy working at the frozen yogurt store, working at the language school, and I was actually also working as a host in a Spanish restaurant, not a Mexican restaurant, but a Spanish restaurant, actually. I didn't speak a whole lot of Spanish there. Sometimes with the dishwasher, we would have a lot of fun kind of having some chats. In fact, I remember when I would go to fill up these water jugs, he would say to me in like a very Mexican Spanish, he would say, "Échale gas, carnal." That's how he would talk to me, meaning like, hey, give it gas, like put gas in the tank, bro. That kind of thing when I would fill it up with water. It was pretty funny, actually. Okay? All right, so then my senior year of high school, I took my first trip to Mexico. Now, this was a really big deal, a really kind of big turning point in my Spanish-speaking career and also in my life. I went to Mexico for only a week. It was just a week. And I went with my friend Luis and his family. We went to the state of Aguascalientes in Mexico, kind of located in the center of Mexico. Very rural, like a lot of farmland. And that trip totally changed my life. One, because I realized how fortunate I am, how grateful I am. That was amazing. I was just like, wow, I'm so blessed. No complaints over here. Second was I saw, a new culture. I saw how people did things. And third, I realized my Spanish was not nearly as good as I thought it was. ¿Cómo sabe? Hey, Julio, ¿cómo sabe?
Chingón, viejo. Un saludo para las gringuitas.
I got there, people are saying things to me, weird colloquialisms and all these things, and I had no idea what was going on. Hey, could you repeat that? Because I did not understand what you said. People were constantly joking with me, and it was fantastic because it was so humbling. It's like, wow, I really have a long way to go with my Spanish. But it was kind of fun, right? I enjoyed and still enjoy the challenge of saying, oh, I can get better. Having that growth mindset is really fun to say, hey, I can always be getting better. I'm not an expert. I can always be getting better. Okay, so that trip really changed my life. So much fun. I actually have a video of that trip on my channel and another trip that I took to Mexico recently. Next, I studied abroad in Seville, Spain, Sevilla, for 3 months. Now, you might be thinking, oh, that's why Nate speaks such good Spanish, is because he lived in Spain for 3 months. Well, I'm telling you right now, that is not the case. In fact, 99% of my Spanish abilities came before my trip to Spain. Now, something I'd like to say is that during my exchange in Seville, a lot of the students, the people in my group, were trying to learn Spanish, okay? Now, we would go to a language school every single day, Monday through Friday, and our Spanish teachers would only speak to us in Spanish. Now, you think, oh, wow, that's a great way to learn Spanish, really immersive. And yes, it is. However, the people who didn't have a super big background in Spanish struggled a lot. They were super lost. The teacher would be giving directions, basic directions, and they couldn't understand. Okay, so there's something to be said there. You do not need to go to another country in order to learn a language with fluency. You don't need to. See, the reason those people were struggling is because they lacked a basic foundation in Spanish. They didn't understand basic grammar rules, basic vocabulary, so just throwing you out into the Spanish-speaking world isn't always necessarily the best idea. Okay, now for some people, of course, this works, but in my opinion, it's much better to learn the grammar and the vocabulary in a traditional setting like a class, from a textbook, from an online course, somewhere where you're learning the fundamentals and then immersing yourself in the language. Kind of learning, then reinforcing what you're learning in the real world. Super important. Okay, so I love that. Spain 3 months is amazing. Soaked up the culture, met amazing people, got to make Spanish friends. It was awesome. I remember I made friends with this lady who owned an empanada store. She was actually Argentinian, living in Seville, and she was hilarious. She would give us free empanadas all the time, super nice. And she had this one girl working there named Tatiana, and she was, I swear, 4'10". She was the tiniest thing. And I remember one night my roommate and I were walking across El Puente de Triana, the Triana Bridge. It was our walk home every single day from school. And we saw her and I said, "Oh, Tatiana." I was so happy to see her. And I gave her this big hug and lifted her up. She's this tiny little thing. So we have a lot of funny memories like that from our Spain trip. And there's something to be said about traveling to another Spanish-speaking country to really become like a motivator for you to improve your Spanish. Okay, so we're almost done here, okay? Now, once I got back from Spain, I started making YouTube videos. So this video right now that you're watching is because I started making them once I got back from Spain around, I would say, almost 2 years ago now, maybe like a year and a half. And this really started to help my Spanish. When I started making YouTube videos, it was helping me a lot because I was speaking a lot more Spanish. I was speaking with people from all over the world.
Saludos a mis amigos de Nate Adventures de parte de Edwin Luna y la Tracalosa de Monterrey.
Learning new little phrases and just having a really fun time. Okay, so that's kind of my overall story. Now, if you have any more questions, you can please leave me a comment on this video asking me. You can also send me an email at SpanishWithNate@gmail.com. You can also head over to my website, SpanishWithNate.com, to check out some more free resources that I have for you. Okay, so what are some lessons that we can learn from my story and how I learned Spanish? Okay, number one is your mindset is everything. Now, I think that this is so under-stressed when it comes to learning a language. But your mindset is so important, okay? It's important to have a growth mindset. You can always get better. If you let your ego get in the way, let that pride get in the way, you're too afraid to make errors in front of people, you're too afraid to admit that you're wrong, this is going to greatly inhibit the progress you're making when learning Spanish. Even nowadays, when I make mistakes here in these videos, right, it's something where I have to be humble enough to say, hey, I totally made a mistake. And that's okay because I learned from it. Now, sometimes that can be a little bit harder when you're in the so-called limelight, right? When you're like, hey, Nate, but you're the Spanish expert. You know everything about Spanish. Well, that's not necessarily the case. I'm still learning to this day, right? And that comes down to my mindset. Hey, I can always be learning. And in fact, learning is fun, okay? Don't take it so seriously. This is so important. When I first started learning Spanish, I didn't say, hey, I want to become a Spanish god in 1 month, in 1 week, right? That was not my mindset, right? That wasn't my goal. I said, hey, I really enjoy this. This is super fun. It's really cool to be able to communicate and connect with new people, right? So I'm just going to have a grand old time learning this language, having fun, right? A lot of times we see people taking it so seriously. Hey, I've been learning for a year now, but my cousin started 2 weeks ago. He's better than me. Okay, hey, who cares? It's not a competition, okay? Don't take it so seriously. Have fun, okay? Just relax, okay? Speak and listen every day. Now, speaking is going to be by far the best way to improve your Spanish, okay? It's going to make you improve the fastest. You're going to be learning so many new things, okay? Listening. This is huge for being able to easier understand native Spanish speakers. And it's also just a lot of fun, right? Listening to new songs in Spanish, having that kind of first real connection, saying, oh, wow, I understood what they said in a certain line or maybe just the entire song, okay? That's a really, really rewarding thing to experience, okay? So make sure you're speaking and listening every single day, okay? Next, like we talked about, make lots of mistakes. If you're not making mistakes, then you're not learning, or you're not learning nearly as fast, okay? So make lots of mistakes, keep trying new things, keep thinking of new ways to say things, how to say things, new words to learn. Just keep making mistakes, keep asking questions, stay curious, okay? Next, don't use a ton of apps, okay? Stick to a few resources. This is probably one of the biggest struggles that I see with new Spanish learners is they download 20 apps and then they try to do all of them and ultimately they don't learn a whole lot. Why? Because you're spreading yourself out, okay? You want to stick to a few resources, okay? So number one, you need to be learning grammar. You need to be learning vocabulary, how the language functions, okay? Pick one good resource for doing that. You could do a textbook, which maybe isn't the most fun. You could do a textbook in a traditional classroom setting, okay? That's how I learned Spanish, mainly. And then you could also do an online course, okay? So something like I offer on my website, my Fluent Spanish Speaker Academy, something like an online course where you learn the grammar, you learn new vocabulary, okay? Really, really important, okay? But don't be doing 20 different apps at once, okay? You need to stick to maybe 3 different resources. So for example, you could do, let's say, an online Spanish course, okay? Maybe supplement that a little with some Duolingo, do a little 5 minutes a day. And then maybe do some Anki, which are these spaced repetition flashcards. And I'll provide links to resources in the video description just so you can see some things, okay? But we really want to limit the amount of resources that we're using because if we spread ourselves out too much, it's actually going to be a lot less effective, okay? And remember, learning Spanish takes time, okay? It's not a race. Take your time, relax, no need to take it so seriously. And it doesn't matter your age, okay? It doesn't matter if you're 10 years old or 80 years old, okay? Learning Spanish is supposed to be fun, okay? It takes time, but that's the joy of it, right? Enjoy the process, okay? Now that I'm here 7 years later speaking a very advanced Spanish, I still have a lot of fun learning new words, decoding song lyrics, watching movies, learning vocabulary, okay? So this is an ongoing process, okay? That's so important. Alrighty then, well, there you have it. Gracias por ver. Actually, I also just saw this down here. I forgot to mention. A few funny stories. So this one here, mariachi. What does that mean? Here, maybe if I come over here, you can see this a little better. Mariachi, what does that mean? Well, in my Spanish class, my freshman year, I would sing a lot, okay? English or Spanish. And so I was given the nickname mariachi. And arguably, to this day, I am still very much a mariachi because I absolutely love singing in English or Spanish, or even sometimes in Mandarin. I'm trying to learn Mandarin right now. Next, a Ferris wheel. This was so funny. One time I was at a fair in my city, and I had run out of tickets. So I was out of tickets, and my friends still had a few. They wanted to go on the Ferris wheel. And I was kind of bummed. I was like, oh man, my friends get to go on this Ferris wheel, and I just kind of have to sit back for 10 minutes and watch them go around this Ferris wheel. So I walk up and I'm like, all right, maybe I can convince this guy to let me get on the Ferris wheel for free. So I said, hey, would it be all right? My friends had these tickets. I ran out. Would it be okay if I went on the Ferris wheel? He said, no, sorry, I can't do that, whatever, blah, blah, blah. I was like, oh, come on, He's like, oh, sorry, man. And then someone off to the side asked him something in Spanish, and he has a little brief, quick Spanish conversation. And then I say to him, I say, oh, ¿hablas español? ¿Por qué no me dijiste? Like, you speak Spanish? Why didn't you tell me? And he kind of laughs, whatever. We have like a 1 minute conversation. He's like, you know what? Go ahead. Súbete. Get on. No worries. So that's kind of a funny thing here. And that's something that I also like to say is you're going to have so many of these fun experiences when learning Spanish and having so many different cool, funny stories. Like when it was your first time ordering in Spanish or your first time, flirting with someone in Spanish, whatever. You're going to have so many of these awesome, fun experiences. Anyways, I just want to say thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please consider subscribing and also giving this video a thumbs up. And you can also learn Spanish with me on my website, SpanishWithNate.com. I have a Fluent Spanish Speaker Academy on there, or you can also try out my free 7-day email course, and I look forward to seeing you there. Thanks so much. Muchas gracias y nos vemos. Adiós.